Hi, I'm Lily, and I've binged uncontrollably on food more times than I can count. Our culture has really screwed up food, and it hasn't been in the pursuit of health. It has been in the pursuit of profits. To get you to buy as much of their food as possible, companies have loaded their products with biologically addictive inputs. Fat, salt, sugar. Our bodies are not designed to ingest these foods in their refined or chemically altered forms. But we do. And when we do, we lose our innate ability to instinctively and easily regulate our food intake. Hyper-palatable, processed junk food is highly addictive, but they aren't enough to cause binge eating disorder all on their own. For these foods to be truly destructive to our health and truly challenging to our self-control, our brains have to be hyper-focused on finding and eating calorie-dense food. Is that genetic? Are some people just born to be super food focused? Well, kind of. All humans, genetically speaking, are designed to be intensely food focused when they are deprived of adequate calories. Caloric restriction plus hyperpalatable junk food equals no self-control, which equals binges. Additionally, these refined junk foods aren't just full of shit that we're designed to be addicted to, they're also not whole foods, and thus they are devoid of many vital nutrients. When some nutrients are low, our body craves food to help fill the nutrient void. A beautiful variety of whole carbohydrate-rich plant foods will, in the vast majority of cases, remedy this situation. But I do admit, even if you're doing everything exactly right nutritionally speaking, if you're binging because of unmitigated anxiety or for emotional comfort, it doesn't matter how perfect you are with your nutrition, you still have a long and probably painful road ahead of you. Binging on food for emotional reasons is like any other addiction. It may have even replaced another addiction, like smoking, drinking, drug use, or self-harming. I remember when I was really struggling with binging, I was binging every day, sometimes twice a day, and purging most of the time. I remember how it would start. It was always anxiety and fear and shame building up inside of me. I was so anxious about life, my relationships, my family, my past, my future, wasting my potential, so ashamed of the mistakes that I had made and the shortcomings that I felt had cost me so much. Facing all of that anxiety at once, especially without support, would have crumbled me. And I felt like I wasn't worthy of asking for support. I felt so ashamed of myself for these silly, stupid, narcissistic coping mechanisms I had developed. And I felt like if I admitted these aspects of myself to another person, my God, they would actually be real. My awareness of this whole process at the time, perhaps obviously, was blunted. Hindsight is always 20/20. And the coping mechanism I turned to was food. Not turning to food for comfort, but turning to food as a scapegoat. If I binged, my problems and the cause of my anxiety was obvious. It was because I binged. I lost control. And the solution was obvious. Don't binge again. Have more willpower. Which was a much simpler issue to have than the mile-long laundry list I had of all of the things that I hated about myself, ways I had failed at life, ways other people had hurt me, and the ways that I felt responsible for other people having hurt me. And once that list starts, so does the little voice that's inside my head. Just take one bite. It won't hurt anything. You can control it. Just one bite. All it'll take is one bite, and all of this will stop. Just make it stop. Take one bite. Which could have just as easily been one hit. Just one little tiny bump and you won't feel a thing. You just need one drag, just one drink, and you will feel nothing. So I was in therapy while I was binging, and my therapist suggested that I just hold awareness during my binge. Don't check out and go into the numb trance that I was used to while I was doing it. Okay, I could do that. So I'd have the awareness. I would watch myself do it. I could watch myself hoovering food into my mouth while listening to some other part of myself scream, "What the fuck are you doing? What is wrong with you? Stop. Just stop. You are ruining everything. How could you be so weak and stupid, you fucking dumb bitch?" Okay, great. So now I have to be aware of the insanity inside my own head. Can we just pause for a minute and acknowledge, for all of us, how terrifying it is to be aware of our own psychosis? I've since read people's explanations of their bipolar disorder or other mental illnesses, and I'm like, yeah, been there. I too have hovered on the precipice of a major mental break. But I'm lucky that I had my dad and my therapist, who are both mental health professionals, who understood that there are better avenues to dealing with issues like this besides medication. And I am so lucky that they stuck with me as I continued to fall apart. In the time span between me gaining awareness of my behavior and actually having the strength, courage, and honestly the recklessness to begin processing the huge amounts of fear and pain and resentment and rage, disappointment, fear, and by the way, did I mention fear? During that time of limbo, I felt like I was treading water in the middle of the fucking ocean. No land in sight, just getting more and more emotionally exhausted. I was using every last shred of strength and faith that I had just to keep myself going, keep myself eating whole plant foods, feeding my body nutritious choices while I had the control, exercising regularly, actually leaving the house, and continuing to floss my teeth. Flossing when you're suicidal is one of the most perverse experiences. But somehow during this process, I finally became so emotionally exhausted that I lost the ability to continue denying my emotions. And it was ugly. I had been trying to suppress the anger, the resentment, the hurt for decades. And the New Age woo-woo authors told me to change my thoughts and stay in the vortex, to liberate myself from these feelings, but I can tell you right now that those people are even more emotionally constipated than I was. We are humans. We cannot avoid or selectively numb our emotions. If you don't fully feel your anger, you can't fully feel your happiness. If you don't feel your fear, you can't feel your passion. And when I started finally feeling these feelings, I was so blindingly pissed during this time in my life. I thought it might just consume me. But it was also at this time that I started feeling real happiness. But I honestly thought I was going to be the angriest, most hateful woman to ever live on this planet. And I very well may have been for a while. But it brought me face to face with my greatest fears. That I was unlovable, that I harbored unacceptable emotions, that I was a useless fuck up of a human being, that I was an uncontrollable monster. I think we imagine or somehow anticipate that coming face to face with these realities about ourselves is somehow going to be the most painful experience we'll ever have. But I will tell you right now that meeting these aspects of myself face to face was the furthest thing from painful that I can imagine. Meeting the worst parts of myself, it was scary, it was terrifying. I'm not going to pretend that it wasn't. But acknowledging them and allowing them to have a voice is what gave me wisdom and compassion and the capacity to empathize. And most importantly, it gave me an unwavering internal strength that I didn't even know was possible. And this process was the most healing, cathartic, pleasant experience of my life. The only painful part was trying to suppress those feelings for so long. The pain, the pathology, it's not in the feeling. It's not even in the expression of the feeling. It's in the suppression. I will, however, give you a quick disclaimer. Once you allow all aspects of yourself to exist, you will have problems with people who insist you be less than yourself. My mom is one of those people. She caused me significant pain, and when I learned to own my pain, that meant that I brought it into our relationship. Not necessarily in a combative or blaming kind of way, but more of just acknowledging that it exists and it affected me. And she has never, she cannot, and she will not accept this. And so she refuses to be a part of my life. But that's okay, because it's my reality, they are my experiences, and I am perfectly capable of owning that without external validation. And not having her in my life is a small price to pay, because I realized that silencing major and powerful aspects of myself, or having to somehow edit my story or my truth, is infinitely more painful than living without my mother. My ex-boyfriend was another example. He couldn't handle me being a dynamic person with dynamic and messy feelings. So he insisted I silence myself. And when I didn't, ultimately, he tried to physically force my silence. And I learned that the fear of being alone is a whole hell of a lot worse than actually being alone and being allowed to have a voice. So if you're worrying about how relationships might change when you are fully yourself, just remember that the consequences of confidently speaking your truth can never be as painful as forcing yourself to whisper in a corner and disowning who you really are. Like Brené Brown says, you either own your experiences or you orphan them. And I have noticed that as soon as I orphan my feelings, as soon as I make myself swallow my feelings and suppress them, I have to swallow a metric fuck ton of food with it. Those feelings are so strong. They are a source of strength, and they won't stay down without a fight. And that fight to suppress them is the root of the addiction. That fight is the root of the binging. And the antidote is connection. Connection to yourself. Connection to your feelings. Connection to your anger, to your past, to your life, to your passion. Connection to real people who are capable of accepting you as a whole, dynamic, imperfect fuck up of a human being. Connection is the only thing that is ever going to get you out of this. Not silly little hacks like lighting vanilla scented candles or going for a walk instead of eating. That is bullshit. That is pandering to distraction and your eating disorder. It's connection. Claiming ownership of your story. Claiming ownership of your feelings. Yes, all of them. Claiming ownership of your needs, your unreasonable wants, your hopes, your fears, and yes, your fuck-ups too. It's all okay. Every single little bit of it is okay. It's acceptable. You have to be the one to accept it. Facing these feelings won't hurt you nearly as much as trying to suppress them. Nothing can hurt you more than you are already hurting yourself. It's scary, it's terrifying, but nothing can hurt you more than you are already hurting yourself. It's heavy shit. I wish I could do the work for you, but I can't. I can only suggest that you dig deep, try to find support in real, kind people, and invest in a 6-pack of microfiber towels to use as reusable tissues, because you don't want to get your nose all raw and you don't want to feel guilty about the trillions of tissues that you're going to be using over the next little while. Trust me, you'll have enough on your plate. So until next time, my God, keep flossing. You will make it through this, and when you do, you will be so grateful that your teeth are still in good condition. Make kinder choices for yourself. Be patient, be compassionate with your battered little self. Make the conscious effort to stop beating yourself up and stop suppressing your feelings. And on top of all that, take really, really good care. I will see you all soon. The comment section is below. Nobody, not nobody, is alone in this, okay?